introduce myself. I'm AJ Williams. My background's Radri and Watcher Bullocks, and my family are from Dimbulla, Horsham, Dubbo, Wellington area of New South Wales. I've been facilitating the reconciliation series through the launch of the RAP and helping AGECS as an association achieve their reconciliation goals. And the reconciliation series is part of that particular array of services that they're actually providing at the moment. But without any further ado, I'm going to throw over to Kim and Angie-Lee.
Thanks, AJ. I'm Angie-Lee Bamblett. I'm the Business Services Coordinator at VAEIA, and I'm a proud Ngarigo and Garangarang woman.
Oh, am I going to? So my name is Kim Powell. I'm the Early Years Coordinator at VAEIA, and I am a proud Koorie Outcomes woman of Southwest Victoria, in particular the Lake Honda region.
So thanks for having us tonight, guys, taking time away to do this. I'm just going to, I haven't done this for a while, so I'm going to try and share the screen. Hang on. Hang on. Okay, I'm just going to, give me 1 second. Here we go. Okay, can everybody see that? Fantastic, thank you. From beginning. Okay, can you guys still see that? Just because I can't see your faces at the moment.
All good.
All good, beautiful. So you want to, Kim, will start?
Am I starting or are you doing the video?
I'll do that. Okay, yeah. I'll start. So, as I said before, my name is Angie-Lee Bamblett, and I am the Business Services Coordinator at VAEIA. So I'm just going to talk a bit about VAEIA and what we do. So VAEIA stands for Victorian Aboriginal Education Association Incorporated, and we are the peak organisation in career education and training in the state of Victoria. We were established in 1976 with the aim of increasing a presence and voice of Koorie people in education decision making. As I said, we're a community controlled organisation, and we work for our community to build success in education in all areas, from early years right through to higher education. Our main functions are providing advice to government on career education issues, monitoring education trends, and advocating for the needs of our community across the state. We have a regional structure based on traditional networks. I'm just going to go to the next slide. We're based, so they're based on traditional networks, and obviously there's way more traditional networks than what we have up here, but we've kind of split them into 8 kind of main areas. So within each region, there are a number of LACGs, which are local Aboriginal education consultative groups, and we have 32 across the state, and they're constituent bodies of VAEIA. They're the working arm of VAEIA, and we are the secretariat. So the staff at the organisation are the secretariat, and the LACGs and our representative council are the working arm of it. So, so the LACGs are voluntary community bodies, which play a central role in the consultative structure of VAEIA, and they were first formed as a result of parent seminars held during the 1970s by former VAEIA members, and they're made up of a broad range of local community members at the local level, and they play a significant role in providing important links between Koorie communities and educational institutions, excuse me. So, so those groups, they are voluntary in each of those 32 areas across the state, and they're just community people that come together and provide real-time information on what's going on that ground, and they provide that information to us, and then we discuss those issues if there are any, and they don't have to be issues, they could be really good things that are happening in those areas, the things that really work, and we discuss that with the Department of Ed.
Thank you, Angie. In my role as the Early Years Coordinator at VAEIA, I'm going to now talk more about the work that we do in the early years space. So I'm just going to start. So VAEIA's early years unit covers the state of Victoria with regards to Aboriginal early childhood and education and care. We provide direct support to and advocacy for our Aboriginal community controlled organisations. We also promote and raise awareness about early childhood programs in their local communities through a range of networking opportunities facilitated or hosted by VAEIA, which includes the Bamblett network meeting. That network meeting consists of the Aboriginal programs and initiatives across the state. We bring them together as an information sharing, a good news story format for those network meetings. And we also deliver Koorie education roundtables that are delivered by our Maroon facilitators. There are 4 of those across the state, and they're held twice a year in each of the DET regions. These networking opportunities through established Maroon governance structures enable community involvement and ensure that the voice of the Koorie community is communicated to government. They are also support for our children and families to make sure Koorie participation in the early years is as strong as it can be. Programs such as Bamblett Koorie Families as First Educators, and Bamblett means strong families, and I'm sure it's Wemba language, but Janette, please correct me if I'm wrong. And they're based in 11 locations around the state. They provide evidence-based parenting programs to our families in those locations. The Koorie Preschool Assistant Program, which provides direct support to our families, again, around kindergarten participation, and also supports the services around about cultural inclusiveness within their service, but also the important part of how to engage with our families. We include Aboriginal supported playgroups in those networking opportunities, Aboriginal Best Start facilitators, which are based in 6 locations across the state. And what I'm going to do now is talk a bit more about the initiatives and programs VAEIA is involved in. So if I skip the page, I think I have, no I haven't. So we also have the Aboriginal languages in kindergarten. VAEIA is partner with Department of Education and Training in Aboriginal Languages Education. The Victorian government provides a number of kindergartens across the state to deliver a language program through a 4-year funded kindergarten program, the Early Childhood Language Program. Since 2018, 18 kindergartens across the state have been funded to include an Aboriginal language in their program. And following an expression of interest process in late 2021, a number of new services are being funded until December 2022. 12 additional kindergartens in 2022 are working towards delivering an Aboriginal language program with our support. VAEIA's primary role in this program is to advise kindergartens and DET around the community protocols for including Aboriginal language education and ensure that these protocols are being respectfully followed. We liaise with traditional owners, mostly registered Aboriginal parties, and LAECGs to assist in permission and support for Aboriginal language education and support professional development opportunities for Aboriginal language teachers. VAEIA is also on the menu for the school readiness funding. We provide considerable supports to early childhood education and care programs across Victoria, and we welcome and appreciate the good work that services do in the ECEC sector. Our training sessions provide educators with knowledge, strategies and resources relating to the engagement of Koorie children and their families. They also address how to make kindergartens culturally responsive and inclusive environments. Our training sessions are suitable for ECEC educators who work in funded kindergarten programs where there are Koorie children, but also those services that don't have Koorie children. They're important to us as well because we know more and more of our families are accessing generalist services. As well as those who work in the kindergartens with no Koorie children, which I just said, my apologies, I thought I didn't put that bit in. The sessions cover how to make your early childhood service Koorie inclusive, exploration of relevant resources, Victorian Aboriginal resources, and hands-on practical experiences. One thing we do with, so that's basically covered what we do with our, in regards to the state. VAEIA is also fortunate enough to receive Commonwealth funding which we call Koorie Inclusive Development. These sessions are provided free to early childhood educators working within a funded kindergarten program, and we have titled those sessions Koorie Inclusive Practice Development. They have been developed by Aboriginal educators for educators and directly relate to the VALDIV and the Australian Professional Teachers Standards 1.4 and 2.4. The sessions focus on how educators can learn culturally inclusive activities to incorporate into early childhood programs. These sessions are suitable for all early childhood educators working directly within a funded kindergarten program, as well as foundation teachers. We also follow up after the sessions by providing yarning circles with more specific topics that have come out of the sessions. So last year we ran 4 kindergarten yarning circles, and one of those sessions, as requested by the educators that were present in the session, was that they wanted to know more about the Aboriginal languages in kindergarten. So we delivered a 2-hour session specifically on that topic. And then we delivered another session on a Koorie parent's perspective, so the voice of a Koorie parent, and that was pretty successful. So we're most likely going to proceed with that moving forward this year. VAEIA has been fortunate through the Commonwealth funding to have direct access to kindergartens, services across the state to provide these sessions. We also, okay, sorry, that's the next one. So that's as far as the PD sessions that we deliver. We deliver 8 a year. This year, normally when we promote on our website or through our Facebook page, they fill up within a couple of days. So they're pretty popular, they're well known. And from our end, it makes us happy that services are wanting to know how to be more inclusive, but also have that engagement with our local community, because that's very important as well, and including parents of the service, Koorie parents of the service. With those sessions, we also give out resources. All of the resources that VAEIA do provide, we encourage the use of Victorian Aboriginal resources, and all of the resources contained within the kit that we provide to services for participating are all Victorian resources created by local small businesses, individuals. We really want to promote and encourage that. And from VAEIA's end, we are about promoting what's available in Victoria for our services in Victoria. We also receive Commonwealth funding in the Inclusion Support Program. So we partner with the Victorian Inclusion Agency Consortium, providing support in the delivery of an inclusion support program for Aboriginal children in early childhood education and care services in Victoria. The project includes building the capacity of mainstream ECEC services to support the inclusion of Koorie children and their families through development of resource tools, providing learning and mentoring support to ECEC staff, and raising the awareness within the Koorie community about the EC services and their entitlement to support. That's probably about it for what we do within the early years unit. One thing that I haven't sort of put within my talk, within Victoria, we have multifunctional Aboriginal childcare services, which we refer to as MACs. We have 6 of those services across the state in different regions. And we also have 2 Aboriginal CFCs, Euro in Bairnsdale and Bubbup Willam in Thomastown. VAEIA strongly advocates and supports those services through meetings with the state and Commonwealth. They are very important Aboriginal childcare services. They are Aboriginal controlled and run, and a lot of them consist of majority of Aboriginal staff. That takes up a huge amount of my time in gathering feedback from them, especially because of the pandemic and how it's impacted them and families being able to access, and they've remained open. They do an amazing job. Supporting them, historically, VAEIA has a long history with them, and we will continue to do so as well. I've provided on the last slide of my presentation contact details for the VAEIA website, which has a huge amount of resources, other information about LAECGs, and a bit more information about the other areas that VAEIA also works in. I work in early years, but we have programs and units that cover from early years right through to higher ed and skills. So our website is also full of relevant material that you will all find useful. And I'm happy to share that with you in an email, AJ, if you want to forward that on.
Cool, thank you. We've got a few questions thrown at us. One is, how can we access the Koorie Inclusive Practice sessions?
Yeah, so the sessions that we're currently delivering at the moment, we didn't even get a chance to advertise them. They're at capacity, but we've got another 4 sessions that we will be advertising on our Facebook page from the second half of the year. So my suggestion is to go to the VAEIA Facebook, and that's got information on there about our sessions and when and where they'll be held.
Cool, thank you. And another question we've got is, how do we access the resources that you're talking about?
Yeah, on our website.
On your website?
So, yeah, we've also got it's not on our website, but I'm happy to share it with you, AJ. We've got a Koorie resource guide. That resource guide was developed because we wanted to promote what's available in Victoria, and that's full of Victorian Aboriginal resources. So I'll share that link with you as well, AJ, after this.
And we'll add it for guys, for all the participants listening. We'll actually, on the AGECS website, underneath the video, you'll actually see the resources. The PowerPoints are being put up. My notes that I'm doing PowerPoints of adding stuff to will be put up there as well. And the resource guide will be put up there as well. So was one other question, and this is a quite an interesting question. Someone just asked, how do you define a community control?
A organisation. So I would define it as
it's an Aboriginal board.
Yeah, I would say Aboriginal controlled in simple terms. So
So
we've got
the board's been appointed by the community.
Yeah.
The membership.
Yeah.
They
are community organisations. I mean, community has a lot of say in those organisations and what they do.
Mm-hmm.
And it's generally an Aboriginal board that's a question I haven't had before. And it's like, how do you...
Another question someone sent me was, I got a few questions here. One says, how, as an early childhood educator, what do you think where should I start my journey on incorporating Indigenous perspective into the curriculum and into the way that I work?
Yeah, so my suggestion to that educator would be to reach out to your local community first of all. I'm not sure what area she's in. It's not listed because I'm just wondering if there is a KPSA in that area. The KPSA can also assist, and we don't have every region. We've got 11 at the moment, with an additional 4 to come on at some point, and I think Janette can talk to a bit more about that. But if you don't have a KPSA, you can also reach out to VAEIA. You can reach out to me. I'm happy to have a conversation with you and help you with that process. We would also encourage, contacting your local LAECG, which again you can do through me. They're also, a lot of them are very involved within providing advice to services. So if that educator wants to reach out to me, I'm happy to have a conversation with her and assist her with that process.
Thank you. I've got the last question is, how can we access the Koorie Inclusive Practice, funding? How can we access the funding that you mentioned?
So the funding that I was talking about is funding that comes to VAEIA.
Okay.
Can she probably be a bit more, I guess, is that in relation to the school readiness funding, or what was that question in relation to?
I've got 3 questions about funding, and this one is how can we access the Koorie Inclusive Practice sessions? Oh, it's that one, that one's done. How do we access the funding that's provided for, it just says for the funding. Let me I'll text the person back and come back to you on that one. I'll message that one. Some of the messages have come through private, some have gone to everybody.
Okay. If it is the school readiness goes to kindergartens in Victoria that are running a funded kindergarten program, if that's what she's referring to. The other funding I was was speaking to is the funding that VAEIA receives to run those programs, whether it's from state or whether it's from Commonwealth.
Cool, thank you. And thank you both. I'm just going to throw over to Janette from the Department of Education and Training. So come in.
Hello. Hi, everyone. Thanks so much, Kim and Angie-Lee. It's always tough to follow the two of you because your knowledge is deep and your passion is always prevalent. I do notice that there's a question also about the language program and whether it's available in long day care. It is actually only available to funded kindergartens in Victoria. It's part of an entire language program of 120 services and includes all languages, including Auslan and Aboriginal language. And as Kim said, at the moment there are 18 kindergartens teaching Aboriginal language. And it's a process to work with traditional owners because, as you would be aware, the Aboriginal languages in Victoria are being reclaimed in many areas. There are 38 languages and they're not all active at the moment. So yeah, just to answer that question. So I just wanted to, first of all, I know that AJ did an acknowledgement, but I just want to acknowledge that I'm meeting you from Boonwurrung country in Altona Meadows and pay my respects to elders past and present here. And certainly acknowledge and the ongoing connection to the lands and waters of the Boonwurrung people across some 3,000 square kilometres from the Werribee River in the west where I am, and right across to Wilson's Prom in the southeast. It's quite a significant area of land and water that's being cared for and managed by Aboriginal people for thousands of years. And I'm very privileged to raise my children and family here. And I extend that respect to all First Nations people present today and to elders past and present in the countries that you're joining us from. And if you feel like popping in the chat where you're joining us from, it's always interesting to understand and know what country people in the meeting are joining us from as well. I'll just introduce myself, then I'll put my slides up. I was really privileged to be asked to be involved in this. I work very, very closely with Kim at VAEIA. We work in partnership on the programs that come out of Marung, the Aboriginal Education Plan. Of course, being a public servant, my title's really long, as AJ said. I'm the Manager of Participation, Transition and Inclusion. I have a team of 8 staff and we're responsible for parenting programs, some early childhood programs and school engagement programs, as well as the department's Aboriginal Employment Strategy and the department's Aboriginal Inclusion Plan. So we do a really broad range of work. I feel really privileged to be sitting amongst all of you because I know the work that you do and I sincerely appreciate the work that you do with the children right across Victoria. In, goodness me, 1986, I went to Footscray TAFE and studied mothercraft nursing and went on to study the diploma in childcare there and teach child studies at Victoria University. I went on to do my Bachelor in Education as well and was a university colleague assessing students for many years, particularly across the western suburbs of Melbourne. So I know I can see lots of familiar names here from my decades of working in the early childhood field. And it's really great to be part of this group because I think I've had about 4 careers since then. I've worked in mining, in Aboriginal employment. I've worked as a CEO of a not-for-profit organisation delivering training on boys' education, bullying and anti-violence programs. I worked at Lady Gowrie as the training manager across the state for a number of years. I've joined the public service after I had my children, which was in 2008. I was privileged to write the first Reconciliation Action Plan of any Victorian government department at the Department of Health and Human Services. And it came on the back of Kevin Rudd's apology. We'd been trying to convince the government to do it and the apology was the hook that gave us that opportunity. So I'm really excited that you've got a Reconciliation Action Plan and that all of you are really actively being engaged through these sessions as part of that plan. And congratulations, it's a huge step and I'm excited for the children that are in your care. So now I'm going to try and share my screen. Let's hope it works because we're WebEx nuts in the department rather than Zoom. Here we go. Can you see my screen?
Yep.
Is it on full screen, AJ, or is it on small screen?
No, if you go right down to the bottom, you'll
Yeah.
see the little
That one.
the little PowerPoint opening. Yeah, there.
Got it.
Should open up.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thanks for persisting with my technology dramas.
Which didn't work.
Look, I also wanted to say one of the things that I know, being a kindergarten teacher and directing a number of childcare centres over many, many years, is that when you enrol a child into a kindergarten, you don't enrol a child, you actually enrol a family. And what I've learned in the years that I've worked in Aboriginal education, and that's been a number of years now in Victoria for 15 years, is that with Aboriginal family, who's included in that family is a broad section of the community, kin and family as well. And so when you're thinking about engaging with, developing relationships with Aboriginal people in early years, you need to really think about the Aboriginal family and the sense of family. This is just a bit of background because I think it's really interesting for people to think about the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander community in Victoria, and where that community is and how that community is made up. This data is a little bit old because we work on census data, and this is 2016 census data, but it gives you the same theme and idea and snapshot around Aboriginal Victoria. There's around 48,000 Aboriginal people living in Victoria that represent about 0.8% of the Victorian population. And the median age of Aboriginal people is 23. For non-Aboriginal people, the median age is 37. The Aboriginal population is young and is growing, and children aged 0 to 14 represent 33% of the Victorian Koorie community. So that just talks to you about the really important focus of children in Aboriginal communities and the role that you're doing. And in 2019, and I'm using this data because I didn't have to get permission from secretaries to share data that was published already, but the numbers are very similar. So there's around 1,600 Aboriginal children attending 4-year-old kindergarten out of about 80,000, and about 950 Aboriginal children attending 3-year-old kinder out of about 2,500. And so you can see that, you know, that those children could potentially be hidden, and they may or may not have chosen to identify as Aboriginal in your organisation. And I wanted you to just be aware about schools as well, because it helps you think about the diversity and the dispersing of Aboriginal people across our universal services. In 2020, there were 1,543 government schools, and Aboriginal students were across 1,360 of those. Sorry, I don't know what happened there.
I've just moved it to mine.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, thanks for that, AJ.
So I can get up for you.
Yeah, deadly. Thanks. I've got too many screens going. I can't tell what I'm doing.
That's all right.
Thank you. You want to jump up to the next one? Sorry.
Sure.
So the plan that we work in partnership with VAEIA on is called Marung, the Aboriginal Education Plan, and it was developed in 2016. Some of you may have known its predecessor plan, WANIC, and Marung is very different to WANIC. I've been working in Aboriginal policy, as I said, in Victoria for over a decade, and I'm so excited to be working on Marung. And the reason I'm excited to work on Marung is it's a strength-based plan for Aboriginal people. It's not a deficit model about fixing problems and dealing with statutory services. So, you know, it's really a joy to work on something that's actually about celebrating Aboriginal people, Aboriginal cultures and knowledge and histories. And also, you know, it's about making universal services responsive and ensuring that every Koorie person can achieve their potential. And that's what the vision of Marung is about. And that vision was actually worked on in partnership, in co-design with the Aboriginal community, which makes it so much richer. And it is very much about all universal services providing that responsive, inclusive and respectful service, whether you have Aboriginal or don't know that you have Aboriginal people and family and children in your services. So it's just important to keep that in mind. AJ, do you want to flip to the next slide or do you want me to do it? You're awesome. This is just really repeating what Kim's already talked about, and just to reiterate to you how important the strength of Marung is its genuine partnership between the government and the Koorie community. In 2019, the Victorian government released the Victorian Self-Determination Reform Framework, and we also have the Victorian Aboriginal Affairs Framework, and both of those actually have very strong principles about self-determination that all government departments and government-funded organisations should be aware of. And it's not about what we do, it's about how we do what we do. Those principles are really, really important. And so there's the map of VAEIA that Kim showed you with their extensive network of consultative groups across the department. And VAEIA work with us really, really strongly as the peak organisation in Koorie education in Victoria and our principal partner. But what the important work that VAEIA do is bringing community voice to decision making, which is really important. So the next slide. Thank you so much. This is out of Marung. So if you have a look in Marung, I've really just given it to you just so you've got it as a bit of a resource. The first two rectangles on here are the work that VAEIA do with the community that Kim's already spoken about, and Angie-Lee. And so the local Aboriginal education consultative groups exist, and they're the structure for bringing community voice. And VAEIA run Koorie education roundtables in all of those areas that you saw on that map for VAEIA. And those I didn't mention earlier, Marung is actually a whole of life education strategy. It covers early years, schools, vocational education and adult education. And VAEIA's roundtables have sessions where they bring different stakeholders from all of those parts of the education sector together at times and separately at times to have conversations and bring that voice back, to share it with the department, to assist us in developing responsive policies and initiatives and projects. And in every region, and so the department is made up of 4 regions and 17 areas. And there are regional partnership forums, which are co-chaired by DET and VAEIA, and the LACG and regional staff attend those. And so there's a cascading effect of the central Marung plan to each of the regions to develop place-based initiatives and projects within their region. We also have a central governance committee. The central governance committee is chaired by our secretary and the president of VAEIA, Geraldine Atkinson. And it includes other Aboriginal community controlled organisations such as VACA, which I'm sure you're familiar with, and I don't need to unpack the acronym, VACCHO, which is a health organisation. It also includes VACSEL, which is the community services organisation, the Koorie Youth Council, and of course, lots of DET people running around taking notes and preparing papers and briefings. The Education State Board is the governance structure of the Department of Education and Training, and that's made up of our secretary and all of our deputy secretaries, regional directors, and the CEO of the Victorian, I always get that wrong, the VCAA, and I can't even think of it because we use acronyms too much. And once a year, we actually hold an annual ministerial roundtable in partnership with VAEIA as well. And all 3 ministers for the Department of Education and Training attend that. We have Minister Molino for Education, we have Minister Stitt for Early Childhood Education, and we have Minister Tierney for Training and Higher Education. And all 3 of those ministers come together to meet with and talk with community, which is really, really important when we're talking about a whole of life education strategy and how all of those parts of education work together, which is really, really important. So the next slide, thank you. I won't go right through this slide. The important part, it's all important, but the really important part is the orange. And these are the outcomes we want from Marung. We want to create a positive climate for learning and development. We want community engagement in learning and development, and we want a culture of professional leadership. And so I guess what I say about Marung is it's a statewide strategy. We've got regions developing place-based initiatives to that, but what's going to take it to work is every single one of you, every single practitioner, every single director, every single cluster manager actually sitting and saying, well, how can I embed these principles of Marung in the work that I do, in our organisation, in our organisational policies? and reflect on that, and having conversations at staff meetings about those 3 things and how you might do those in your organisation is a great place to start when you're thinking about policy. I was the boring teacher at TAFE that did all the stuff on ethics and planning and, management. So I'm the boring one that does policy. So if you ever want to yarn with me about that, please feel free to connect. My number's on the end of this. So the next slide really just talks about the whole of Victorian government. We have the education state reform, which is the big reform for education in Victoria. But the wonderful thing about the education state reform is that it coincided with, and it strengthened the commitment by the Victorian government to Aboriginal-led decision-making or self-determination. And it's such an exciting time in Victoria. I mentioned to you that, I was lamenting in the Department of Health and Human Services in 2017, how can I get a RAP happening? And was, needed Kevin Rudd to do the apology to give me that hook. We're at another really, really important turning place in Victoria, where Aboriginal community treaty is being advanced. The Assembly has been established for treaty, and community consultation has commenced through the Assembly. The other really, really important piece of work, and I think important for you to be aware of as managers and carers, is the Yurruk Justice Commission. The Yurruk Justice Commission was officially launched about 2 weeks ago, and the commission is actually a royal commission. The interim report will come down in June this year, and then there'll be a final report coming down. And it will have really strong and solid recommendations for all government departments, including the way that we fund and provide services to Aboriginal people in Victoria. It will be both powerful and sad, because like the Bringing Them Home report, which some of you might be familiar with, which was an inquiry into out-of-home care and the stolen generations, people are sharing very, very personal stories. And it is not an old history. It is a very recent history. You will meet many, many Aboriginal people whose experiences in education were not a good experience. And they might be expressing some of that trauma that they experienced and lived during their time in education. And they may have stories of actually being taken from the institution where they'd gone to learn and never saw their families again. And lots of those stories will come out. So I tell you that just to make you aware that families in your service over the next couple of months may be sharing some of those stories with the Commission. And it will bring up some things for them that they might need to work through. And so just to be empathetic and aware that that's happening is important to you. And so I've just got a picture of some of the other things. And really my point here is that we have a holistic approach to Aboriginal education, and we work very closely with all of the other departments. The Department of Justice has the Aboriginal Justice Agreement and an Aboriginal Justice Forum. We work really closely with the Department of Families, Fairness and Housing, who has Wangaroo Gap Gap Dua, which is the Children and Families Agreement, and they hold the Aboriginal Children's Forum, which is a focus on Aboriginal children in out-of-home care. I'm sure that you're familiar that of the children in out-of-home care in Victoria, 25% of those children are Aboriginal. And I know that VAEIA is going to be talking to you at one of your next catch-ups. So it'll be great for you to hear from Muriel about trauma-informed practice and the work that VAEIA does in relation to children in out-of-home care. I worked for the Commission for Children and Young People and worked with Andrew Jacomos, the Commissioner for Aboriginal Children, before coming to education. And we conducted the Task Force 1000, which was looking at the cases of 1,000 Aboriginal children in out-of-home care. And the other strategy that's a really important one in Victoria is the DELT-JAR strategy, which is the family violence strategy. Because what we found of those 25% of children in out-of-home care was that 90% of those children were there as a result of family violence. And that's something to be really aware of as a service provider, working really closely with families and children. And I don't tell you that to kind of, get all spooky and concern you about your job. It's just about being professional and aware of the complexities that some Aboriginal families who may be attending your service may be experiencing and not all Aboriginal families experience this, but too high a proportion do. So just wanted to raise that. So the next slide.
Just to let you know, I've downloaded all those documents that can be uploaded to the AGECS website.
Oh, sweet. Thank you, AJ. So Kim's already gone through this, so I don't need to. This is the early childhood initiatives out of Marung, and Kim's been through all of that, but you'll get this slide and you can reflect on it as well. So we'll just skip past that one. So we'll jump on to the next. And so the thing about Marung is that lots of different prongs happen. You know, it's the spoken wheel model. Marung is, you know, a very specific Aboriginal education plan, but there's so many things that happen that support that plan to be realised. And of course, the VELDF, which I don't need to talk to any of you about, is a really core element to early years. And we're just so proud of the work that's been done and the cultural knowledge story developed by Dr. Sue Lopez and Atkinson and Annette Sachs, her illustrations that actually bring the framework's elements into that Aboriginal lens and story of learning and development outcomes, practice principles and transitions. So, you know, I know that you know that, but it's just really a good example of how we make something mainstream have an Aboriginal perspective. And teachers always say to me, how do I get an Aboriginal perspective in my activities and in my learning and in my organisation? This is a great example of how to do that. School readiness funding has already been spoken about, so I won't go into it, but importantly, that menu that Kim and Angie-Lee have mentioned, that VAEIA is on the menu of evidence, a number of Aboriginal community controlled organisations are, particularly into the third element around access and inclusion. And so again, that's embedded into the school readiness training, which is absolutely fabulous. So we'll skip into the next slide. And I'm sure you all know about Koorie Kids Shine, but it's my job to spruik it just a little. I was just a bit excited because Koorie Kids Shine, as you know, is a campaign to promote both the importance of kinder, but in particular, continued access to that 15 hours of free kindergarten for early start kinder. And with 3-year-old universal kinder coming on board, we want to keep that message strong, that Aboriginal children still get that 15 hours of free kindergarten. And so in this year's campaign, we engaged a new design by Kamara Morgan, which you can see down in the corner there. And we're really excited to use her contemporary work as we go forward to promote the Koorie Kids Shine campaign. And I can't talk to you without talking about our amazing Aboriginal workforce in the Department of Education and Training. We've got about 140 staff in our Koorie education workforce, and I'm sure that you're familiar with and hopefully work alongside some of those staff. So to help you understand who they are, we have Koorie education coordinators, and there's one of those in each of the 17 areas of our department. And the Koorie education coordinators have the KESOs, which are lovingly known, the Koorie engagement support officers are in their teams. And so they're area-based staff and are place-based. And they provide strategic advice to teachers, to school leaders, and to multidisciplinary area teams. And a number of the KESO roles in different locations have a particular focus on the early years. And I'm sure some of you have been around as long as me and remember the PSFOs, the preschool field officers, the Koorie ones. I was very lucky that Annette Sachs was mine when I was teaching. So I was in a very fortunate space. And have maintained a relationship with her since then. The other staff, there are 4, are the Koorie education managers. And I mentioned to you that we have 4 regions. They have a very strategic role in each of the 4 regions doing strategy work. But they're just important people to know. And, you know, Kim said to you earlier that, you know, you can reach out to the Koorie preschool assistant if there is one in your area, but the KESOs is also an opportunity for you to reach out to. And on the department's website, you will actually find the contact details for the Koorie engagement support officers. They're easier to keep up to date because there's only 17 of them. And they will put you onto the KESOs. We don't put all the KESOs numbers on because they change too frequently. and keeping up to date with 140 odd people is too difficult. Otherwise the website gets out of date. So the next slide. The next slide breaks all my rules about everything I know about training. If it doesn't look good on a t-shirt, it doesn't look good on a slide. Way too many words. This is just for your information. But I wanted you to know that we did a number of things, particularly during COVID, and I know that you did. I was lucky enough to be on the panel for the Victorian Early Years Awards for the inclusion category. And I read so many amazing stories from services about the innovations. Talk about going out of the box, adding value, doing more than they had to. And I know early childhood people do that all the time. And the stories that I saw and heard of the work that you were doing during COVID was just outstanding. But I did want to let you know that in 2020, VAEIA were funded by ourselves and the Commonwealth to employ a number of outreach support facilitators who worked, again, because Marung is whole of life, worked across the education sector with families. And they did absolutely amazing work in a very short amount of time, accessing computers and dongles for students in school education, connecting and referring families to mental health services, to disability services, arranging tutoring for students that needed that tutoring, and most importantly, providing cultural connection to those families while they were working or learning from home. It was a really great piece of work. You know, again, thank you deeply to VAEIA. We're so fortunate to have them as a principal partner in our department. With that wide network of LACGs, this work was amazing. And this year, our department funded outreach workers, which I'm sure you're all familiar with. And there were 16 kindergartens that expressed interest to have those outreach workers. And again, they've done some really great work in some really tough times, you know, enhancing, you know, those collaborations, identifying children who are eligible for kinder enrolment and helping during that really difficult time around enrolment. You know, just keeping things ticking along. It's really, really important. It's been a really tough time. And again, I can't acknowledge you all enough as practitioners, managers, directors for the work you did over this last 2 years. Outstanding. This is a little bit old, this data, but it also shows you a trend. So what I want to say is that Marung's making a difference, but I'm being a bit selfish there because everything's making a difference. The things you're doing are making a difference. Best Start is making a difference. The VAEIA professional development is making a difference. But what we've seen, and I love it, I wish Lionel Bamblett was here. He's the general manager of VAEIA, and I love listening to him speak about this, because if you look at the 4-year-old kinder participation rates, Aboriginal children, and this was 2019 data, but I can tell you that 20 and 21 is the same. A 99% participation rate. And non-Aboriginal children in 2019, you can see was 67%. So what Lionel likes to say is that we've smashed the gap. And I stole his words, so you can dob on me, Kim. But, you know, it's really, really great to see that participation rate for Aboriginal children in kinder now exceeds non-Aboriginal children. And you saw on that very first slide, the percentage in comparison. You know, out of 80,000 children, it's outstanding. And that's the work of all of you as well. So I just wanted to say thanks, because those circles happen because of the great work that everyone here does. And that's just my contact details that you can annoy me anytime.
Thank you, Janette.
No worries.
Hey, I'm just going to throw open to anybody who has any questions. We do have a question that comes in. By accessing the Aboriginal language kindergarten, how does it work? And does someone come into the kinder and teach the language?
Did you want to answer that, Kim, or do you want me to?
Janette, I'm happy for you to answer it. It's a bit complicated, so I'd rather that you answer it.
No worries. So for the languages programs in kindergartens, an expression of interest was put out to kindergartens to express interest to teach a language, and a number came in: Greek, Italian, etc., etc. The model for most languages was that there was a bilingual teacher. The model for Aboriginal is different. Because the language can only be taught by a traditional owner that has learnt that language, and there are not a lot that in that position at the moment. So we had 32 kindergartens in Victoria express interest to want to teach an Aboriginal language. And we've worked with the traditional owners in those 18 and have established those programs. And those traditional owners go into the kindergarten regularly and work with and teach those children while the teacher and the other educators are there. And the teachers and educators, and please, some of you might be doing this, speak up, actually then, can embed some of those words, those songs, those stories, across the whole week with the children. And then the other kindergartens that haven't yet commenced, there are conversations happening with traditional owners in their areas to commence some of those. Alongside the languages in kindergarten, we've had a program in our vet sector where we've been training traditional owners to learn their Aboriginal language in a Certificate 3 and to teach their language in a Certificate 4. And we've been very excited that we've been able to work with the Victorian Institute of Teachers, that those language teachers are now, I'll get it wrong, what's the right language? Angie-Lee, you fix me up here, but they're exempt from permission to teach. Have I got the right language?
Yeah.
And can now teach in schools and kindergartens under that permission to teach, which is fabulous. Long answer, sorry.
Cool. The last question is, it says just for the 4 speakers, and I think they've said, Janette, you gave a really great briefing about what you do in your history in the area of early childhood. The question is, can Angie-Lee, AJ and Kim just mention how they're involved in early childhood through your qualifications and other experience?
Well, I'll go first. My experience, I've worked in Aboriginal organisations since I was 17. When it comes to early childhood, my experience comes from working within community.
And I don't work in the early years unit with Kim. In my role at VAEIA, I'm across kind of all areas, but I am also involved in a few MAC services across the state. One of them, so YAPRA, which is quite well known, that's based in Thornbury. My mother-in-law was a founding member of that, and our family has been involved in YAPRA, and I've got 4 boys of my own.
And I have to say, within the VAEIA structure, we have what we call advisory committees. Within VAEIA, we've got an early childhood subcommittee, which consists of some LAECGs, some are specialist reps, some are life members of VAEIA. They've been involved in education for over 50 years. That early childhood subcommittee advises me. So I get, I've got that subcommittee to rely on in regards to advice, endorsement of resources, et cetera, that those subcommittees within VAEIA are a very important part of our structure as well. And they guide and advise me in the early year space.
Cool, thank you, Kim. Janette, anything you want to add that you didn't mention before?
No, I send everyone to sleep. All good, thanks.
Nah, cool. And just for me, I started off as a nurse. So when I was 17, 18 and 19, I finished my nursing qualification as a registered nurse. I'm a maternal health nurse and a mental health nurse. My interest in early childhood goes back to like the birthing process. And then I actually went off and did my master's in social work. So I'm a mental health accredited social worker. I've worked at VATCHO, I've worked in Indigenous organisations, and I work across Victoria at the moment with most of the Aboriginal health services looking at mental health training. And so that's kind of my background in that as well. Someone just said, can we finally clarify, or can you clarify the strategy mentioned, the family violence delta?
I can. I'm a bit slow, so I was just Googling it, and I'm going to put the link in the chat.
Yep, cool. And I'll add it to the PowerPoint.
Yep.
Do you want to say anything about it?
It's look, it's a strategy that it used to sit within the Department of Human Services, and after the Family Violence Royal Commission, which was I think about 3 years ago, a new statutory authority was created, Family Safety Victoria, which is also now part of Department of Families, Fairness and Housing, but sort of a statutory authority of its own. The family violence strategy has existed for over 25 years. When I was the Director of Aboriginal Outcomes in DHS, I was lucky enough to look after the strategy there. Similar to the VAEIA structure, there are volunteer groups spread out across the state, and they come together to quarterly forums to look at place-based approaches as well as statewide approaches to preventing and responding to family violence, across Victoria. The Department of Family Fairness and Housing, or now Family Safety Victoria, pay the salaries of coordinators that support those consultative mechanisms across Victoria. But I've put the link in there for the strategy. You can have a look, and if people have questions, you've got my email, just shoot me an email and I'll probably just refer you to the people who can talk to you about those things, because I know a little bit of everything and a lot of nothing.
I've just downloaded the strategy. So guys, it will be put up onto the website under the presentation. So I'm just going to ask, is there any other final questions that anybody would like to throw to the panel at all? Anything the panel would like to actually add or conclude? Angie-Lee, anything?
No, I just want to say thank you to everyone for having us this evening and coming away from your children and households and all that kind of stuff. And I haven't done a presentation in a while, so but Kim does have she did put up her details as well, and AJ's also got her information. So please feel free to contact our office at any time, and we're more than happy to help anyone that needs assistance with anything.
Thank you. Kim, anything you want to add?
Yeah, I just want to mention VAEIA, we've got a huge mandate within Victoria in regards to Aboriginal education. We are a small organisation, but we do our best to assist wherever we can. Because of the Commonwealth funding, that's enabled me to be able to get access into services that we wouldn't normally have, and that's been really good. But if you do have any questions or any queries, or you need any help, please reach out. Happy to help where I can.
Thank you. Thank you. And Janette, anything final from you?
Yeah, look, I just want to thank everyone for your engagement and your commitment to coming to these seminars. I'm a non-Aboriginal person. I've worked in Aboriginal policy in and out of different types of roles for about 25 years. And about 2 years ago, I left Aboriginal business because I saw self-determination so strongly that I knew that I needed to move out of the sector and move aside for Aboriginal people to take important roles like the one that I'm doing now. And an Aboriginal elder actually spoke to me and rang me up and said, "Where are you and what are you doing?" I said, "Look, I really respect Aboriginal people. I respect self-determination, and I'm working as a local connections manager." And they nearly choked. And so did I, because I'm not good at contracts. But what they said to me was that we actually need allies. We need strong allies. We need strong non-Aboriginal people to stand alongside us. And don't you ever feel shamed or disempowered to do Aboriginal business as a non-Aboriginal person when you do it the right way. When you don't speak for, but walk alongside community. It's really important. And what I say is that please don't be paralysed into fear and inaction and do nothing. I think that, sometimes we need to be brave and test ourselves, and in doing something different, sometimes it's a bit uncomfortable. And I can tell you that as a non-Aboriginal person who is, you never let go of early childhood, just saying. I haven't done it for 20 years, but you never lose it. My details are there. And if you ever want to have a yarn with me as a non-Aboriginal person about something that you're uncomfortable about, you can't talk to an Aboriginal person about, please contact me.
Thanks, guys. For those of you who've got your cameras on, please give a bit of a round of applause to Kim, Angie-Lee and Janette. And thank you for joining us tonight. You've noticed up into the chat, I've put down the future workshops that are coming up. Our next one is in May with the Victorian Aboriginal Childcare Agency, talking about VAEIA and their role. In June, we actually have Reconciliation Australia with Nicole Finlay, the new CEO of Reconciliation Victoria. In July, we have the KESOs, 2 KESOs come in talking about what their role is and how they can get involved with early childhood services. Seminar 7 in August is with VATCHO and the Dandenong Aboriginal Co-op, talking about the Koorie maternity strategy and how that impacts on young people and families. In the following session in September, we've got the Grandmothers Against Removal, who can't wait to come in and talk to you about just getting to understand that nearly 50% of Aboriginal kids are not living with their parents. They're actually living in out-of-home care. And grandparents with against removal is trying to make sure that, you know, families are still connected, even though they are disconnected from their peers, their family. Seminar 9, we're looking at lived experience of stolen generations and connecting home. Can't wait to come in and have a bit of a chat. And seminar 10, the last one for the year, will be November, which will be a bit of a review of what we've actually covered and questions and answers from you guys that will pose from after seminar 9, just post in questions that I get a bit of a panel on to have a bit of a chat with you. So guys, I know we've gone a little bit late over time. Thank you for hanging with us today. Please stay safe, look after yourself, and join us next time. So thanks guys all for coming, and thanks to the wonderful panel. Thank you.